I may have uncovered something. I was making a video on Crackle mediums and how they work. They're so much fun to use in mixed media. And I put a little bit of Sonja's Crackle on an alcohol ink piece. I did not expect this to work. Alcohol ink is so sensitive and rewets with anything that has any little bit of solvent in it. And in fact, Sonja's smells a little solventy. So this did exactly what I thought it would do, and it got real flaky. And because Yuppo is flexible, stuff just goes everywhere. It also rewet everything underneath it. But it got me to thinking, if alcohol ink and Sonja's Crackle medium were mixed together, could I make an alcohol ink crackle glaze? This video is showing you the experiments that I've run to create alcohol ink crackle glazes using Sonja's Crackle medium. Check it out. This is the first test that I ran, just putting some Crackle medium down. I just want to see if the alcohol ink will work with it. So what I did was I took some of Jacquard's Pinata colors, this is the Calabaza Orange, and I just dripped it right on top of the wet Crackle medium, and then I'm going to use a palette knife to spread it around. On this one, I'm working on Ampersand's clay board, which is great for alcohol inks. And I noticed that the ink ran off of the Crackle medium very quickly and stained the board. Also, after waiting just a little bit, it got kind of chunky. So I wasn't too optimistic at this point on how this was going to work, but the result gave me some inspiration. It worked. There were some issues with the staining around the edge, but now I know I just need to mix off to the side. And the fact that I'm working on a board means that things are not flaking off. Now, yeah, if you really scrape it, you can get things off, but this is exactly how a Crackle medium should look. Time for more experiments. This board is alcohol ink on Ampersand's clay board. So it's already stained, and I'm going to put an alcohol ink glaze over it. This one is an acrylic wash on an encaustic board, so I don't expect the alcohol ink to move anything underneath it, whereas on the pink and yellow one before it, I do expect it to move around and rewet a bit. This last one is a combination of the two. This is alcohol ink on clay board with an acrylic wash over top of it. This way, the acrylic will keep any alcohol ink underneath from rewetting. Let's see what happens. This time I'm going to mix the Sonja's on a palette away so it doesn't stain the surface that I'm going to work on. This is Sapphire Blue from Jacquard Products. This is their Pinata Color Alcohol ink. I'm also going to use their Senorita Magenta for the acrylic glazed one. And for the very last one that has the alcohol ink and acrylic glaze on top, I'll be using Baja Blue. For each one of these, I just used 3 to 4 drops. That way I have a nice glaze where I can see what's happening underneath as well. I don't want this to be opaque. I'm going to use a palette knife to mix these up and apply them to the board. And I notice immediately that chunky buildup like I had before. Any time that you wait to bring that palette knife in and start that mixing process gives that alcohol ink a little bit of time to dry, and that's where these little chunks are coming from. So the quicker that you can get to the mixing, the less of those that you're going to have. You can work these chunks out as you mix it into the paint, but it's best if you can kind of avoid it altogether. Time to apply. I'm going to scoop up my alcohol ink Crackle glaze and just apply it by troweling it on with a palette knife. As I'm troweling it on, I want to look and see if what is underneath is rewetting or moving around at all. And in this particular case, the one where it's just an acrylic, nothing is budging. Everything is staying in its place, and I have a nice glaze of acrylic Crackle on top. For this one, this is the one with just alcohol ink under. So I expect that alcohol ink to rewet and move around a little bit. To my surprise, it doesn't move much. The clay board seems to keep it in place more than the Yuppo. And this last one has that acrylic glaze over alcohol ink. And in fact, these are not budging whatsoever, and I have a nice glaze going on top. Let's let these dry and take a look at what the results are. The sapphire blue glaze on top of the alcohol ink on clay board did rewet what was underneath and lightened it a bit, but the glaze itself is perfect. It's beautiful. It did split the colors to where you see white underneath and not the color that was underneath. This is very nice. Here's the Senorita Magenta Crackle glaze over top of the acrylic wash, and nothing underneath it has budged. Everything looks right. We're onto something here. I love how the thin application offers very tiny cracks that sparkle like glass in the sun. Here's the Baja Blue Crackle glaze on top of the acrylic isolation coat that was on top of alcohol inks. So my alcohol inks underneath, I can still see, they haven't budged. That acrylic isolation coat is key here though, because now that I've got my crackle glaze on top, when it splits, it's actually showing the acrylic underneath and not splitting all the way back to the board and revealing white. This is good. After thinking back to that very first curious sample that I made, I needed to run one more test. This time I want to put Jo Sonja's Crackle medium with no alcohol ink in it on top of alcohol ink on clay board. In this case, I want to see how much the alcohol ink underneath really does rewet. I know it moves a little, but I don't think it moves much. And this board has proven to be an excellent surface for Crackle mediums to stick to, so it's not going to flake off like it did on that Yuppo. The results of this one may be my favorite. The clear Crackle medium over top of the alcohol inks, it looks like this ceramic glaze, and the cracks actually cast a little bit of a shadow on there. It's just gorgeous. If you found any of this information inspirational or informational, poop that like button for me. Let's spread this information around so that we can all learn more about how to use our art supplies and the amazing things they can do for us. See you next time.